If you've ever tried to figure out the secret to earning money, you've probably seen all the obvious tips. Some tell you to live within your means, others say you've got to practice discipline. But the thing is, after over 150 books about making money and building wealth, I've found tons of tips that go against the grain. You have to look beyond the obvious to learn the true path to wealth, and once you start thinking outside the box, you'll be shocked at how easy it can be. Hello and welcome back to Tide to Wealth, where you're just one sale away from financial success. Now, some of the advice you're about to hear might sound like the opposite of what you should be doing, but it comes from the likes of Robert Kiyosaki, David Schwartz, and even the Wizard of Omaha himself, Warren Buffett. Want to know what sets them apart? Instead of just following the crowd, they carve their own path to get rich. Some of the stuff they've come up with is literally taught at business schools. So without further ado, let's dive in and learn some of the most mind-blowing secrets to financial stability. If you've ever gone to a so-called financial planning expert, I'm willing to bet they told you to cut down expenses. We've heard it all before. Live within your means, be frugal, etc. Now, that's not exactly bad advice, but if you follow it, you'll be living a pretty boring life. Well, according to Robert Kiyosaki, you should forget about living below your means. Instead, you need to think about expanding your means. Look, it takes a lot of effort to spend less. You'll have to figure out cheaper food options, sacrifice family vacations, and just generally take all the excitement out of life. Wouldn't it be better to put that enjoyment towards, I don't know, earning more money? Now, I'm not saying you should blow your savings on an expensive vacation. Instead, try to figure out what you can do to get that money. Use it as motivation, expand your means, and get yourself to the finish line. Treat yourself after you've earned it. Build this mindset up over time and you'll be amazed at the difference it can make. Oh, and if you're enjoying this video so far, would really appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Now, most of you have probably heard of the sunk cost fallacy, but what does it really mean? I found another way to look at this that describes it brilliantly. It's called the wrong mountain, and it's the same basic principle. Let's say you're climbing up a mountain, you're halfway up, you notice there's an even better mountain right next to it. It's easier to climb, has better views, and the whole enchilada. You can get to the other mountain, but you have to climb back down, take some time to catch your breath, and start the whole thing all over again. Is all of that effort really worth it? Yes, of course it is. Okay, here's how this mindset works in a practical setting. Try to imagine you started a roofing business, but a couple of years later, you realise it's not working out for you. Now, suppose you have a friend who went into landscaping and he's making an absolute killing. You realise you made the wrong call, but since you've already sunk so much cash into your business, you might think it's too late to switch gears. But you're wrong. Most people wouldn't start all over again to build a new business. They just stick around and make the best of what they have. But if you make the decision to just get it done, you'll be so much better off years later. That's why it's important to think long term. Don't get stuck in the past. A loss is a loss. You take it, you learn from it, you move on. Whatever you do, don't settle for the wrong mountain. Look, if you're not born with a trust fund, you're obviously going to worry about where your money goes. Most would agree that Apple's stock is a pretty sure bet, but what if it just tanks the next day? What if you hold off on buying a house and the Fed decides to double interest rates? There are thousands of what ifs, and it's not like you can't think about this stuff, but you've got to make a decision sometime. Just like the rest of y'all, I've had trouble figuring out where my money should go, but I found an answer in Dale Carnegie's book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Just ask yourself one simple question. What's the worst that could happen? I know, you already ask that question all the time, but again, it's all about your approach. Think logically, write down the pros and cons, create an analytic approach, and actually figure it out. More often than not, the worst outcome won't be as bad as you thought. The point is that you won't get anywhere until you make a decision. And remember, if you end up climbing the wrong mountain, you can always climb back down. Okay, so far we've been talking about your mindset and how you can change it, but it's time to get down to some practical knowledge. Luckily, we have the guru himself, Robert Kiyosaki, to help us out with that. One of the most important lessons he taught me is the difference between assets and liabilities. It's really not that complicated. Basically, an asset is something that earns you money, and a liability takes money out of your wallet. Kiyosaki says that getting rich is about increasing your assets and decreasing your liabilities. So, if you have a limited supply of money, you need to focus on getting more assets and avoid taking on liabilities as much as you can. Here's a practical example. If you have a few $100s lying around, you can use it to buy a stock in an ETF. For the price of an expensive meal, you can buy an asset that will earn money automatically. Speaking of which, the next tip takes the concept of automation a bit further. Just like with minimizing expenses, a lot of financial advisors will tell you to exercise some willpower. If you have a credit card, they'll tell you to be disciplined about paying it off each month. That makes sense, right? Like, you don't want to pay the crazy interest rates every month, so taking the time out to clear the bill is definitely the right choice. Then again, everyone makes mistakes, so you might miss a payment once in a while. These little missteps really start to add up, so you need to take human error out of the equation. Instead of stressing out and doing it all manually, you can set up a system that will deduct the credit card balance automatically every month. Most banks offer this service, and even though you'll need to pay a couple of dollars every month for it, that's a small price to pay compared to potential interest charges. You can use this mindset for all sorts of things, like creating stop losses on your trading accounts for starters. Willpower's great, but automation beats it every time. Everything comes at a price, especially earning money. Whether it's the cost of getting a college degree, start-up capital for a business, or even just buying a suit for an interview, all sorts of costs will come up in your financial journey. By the way, not all these costs are related to money. For example, Joe Biden's really been doubling down on semiconductor manufacturing lately. That's a great opportunity to get in on the ground floor, but setting up a semiconductor business will require enormous capital investment, not to mention technical expertise. You need to consider both of these costs. You can spend years learning about semiconductors, or you can focus on something you're already good at. The choice is yours, you just need to make it wisely, and learning the cost of earning money is the first step. This brings me to the next bit of advice I learned. Think big. Sounds obvious. Think again. David Schwartz explains it quite brilliantly in his book, The Magic of Thinking Big. He says you should see every possibility instead of just focusing on what life's like right now. Most people would say you need to be realistic, and there's nothing wrong with that. Then again, the biggest titans of the industry got to where they are by thinking big. Schwartz splits people up into small thinkers and big thinkers. A small thinker only sees what's right in front of them, but a big thinker will try to see all the possibilities. They'll look at a failing business and see where it can improve, or they'll have a grand idea and work non-stop to see if they can get it off the ground. Now, small thinkers talk a lot about luck. They'll try to tell you that the rich all got lucky, but I have some news for you. You can make your own luck. The further I get in my journey, the more I learned that luck really isn't much of a factor. I mean, sure, you can win the lottery one day, but how many billionaires got their start like that? Here's an example. Say I went out and researched about 100 stocks. I went deep into their earnings reports, analysed their fundamentals until my eyes turned red, and just put my whole heart and soul into it. I'm obviously going to do way better than someone who just made decisions on the fly, but from the outside it will seem like I just got lucky. Do you want to know something amazing? That's exactly how Warren Buffett got to where he is today. Seriously, this is one of the first pieces of advice I read from him, and it completely changed my life. Here's what Buffett said. The trick, it seems to me, is to have some balance that causes the people who have the talents that can produce goods that people want in a market society to turn them out in great quantity and to keep wanting to do it all their lives. and at the same time takes the people that lost the lottery and makes sure that just because they, on that 1 minute in time they got the wrong ticket, don't live a life that's dramatically worse than the people that were luckier. Most people you think got lucky created the circumstances for their luck. They put themselves in the right place at the right time, instead of just waiting around for something to happen. So there you have it, folks. Let us know in the comments if you think these secrets have changed your perspective on earning money. See you next time.